Have you ever really stopped to think about how one person could have two names with meanings that are, well, complete opposites? Today, we're going to dive deep into the story of one man known as both Jacob and Israel. And in doing so, we're going to uncover what our source material says is a profound and very commonly misunderstood truth about struggle, victory, and what it really means to have faith. So let's get right into it. And boom, here's the puzzle right up front. On one hand, you have the name Jacob, which means supplanter or deceiver. On the other, you have Israel, a name given to the exact same guy, which our source tells us means victor over a false god. So how on earth does a deceiver become a divine victor? That's the incredible journey we're about to explore. All right, to really get a handle on this transformation, we have to start at the beginning. We need to understand the man he was before everything changed. So let's talk about the nature of Jacob. So the name Jacob, it literally means one who takes by the heel, a supplanter, a trickster. And according to our source, this name is more than just a name. It represents the flawed human condition, our state before faith, a life that's all about self-reliance, clever schemes, and just striving. It's that constant hustle to get ahead on our own terms. And his life story is just packed with examples of this. First up, we see him totally exploiting his brother Esau's moment of weakness. Esau comes in from the field, he's starving, and what does Jacob do? He uses a simple bowl of stew to trick him into selling his sacred birthright for basically nothing. And you'd think that would be enough, but no, he didn't stop there. Next, he teams up with his mom to deceive his own father, Isaac, who at this point is old and blind. He actually covers his arms in goat skin so he'll feel hairy like his brother. And with that trick, he steals the main blessing that was supposed to go to Esau. It's just pure calculated deception. So here's the million-dollar question. Did all this scheming and trickery actually work out for him? Not really. In fact, his life just becomes this cascade of hardships. He's fleeing his angry brother, then he gets deceived himself by his uncle. It's years and years of struggle. And this really highlights a key idea from our source. No matter how smart you are, human effort alone just can't grab a true, lasting blessing from God. But then, everything changes. Years later, Jacob's finally heading home, and he's about to come face to face with the very brother he cheated. And he is terrified. He sends his entire family, all his possessions, everything he has, across the Jabbok River. And for the first time, he's left totally and completely alone in the dark. This night is the turning point. You can really see the anatomy of his transformation laid out right here. Look at how this unfolds. He starts out alone, trapped by his own fear. Then, some unknown opponent shows up, and he gets into this intense struggle, fighting with everything he's got. But right here, this is the critical moment. His opponent strikes his hip, and his physical strength, his self-reliance, is literally broken. It's only then, when he can't stand on his own anymore, that he just clings on and finds a totally new kind of victory, one that isn't born from strength, but from total dependence. And this brings us to the absolute heart of the story, the moment his name is changed. Because this is where our source material makes a really bold claim. It argues that a common translation has led us all to a profound misunderstanding of what the name Israel actually means. Okay, so get this. The central argument from our source is that the popular translation we all know, the one that frames Israel as one who struggles with God and wins, is a mistranslation. The whole idea of a regular person overpowering the creator of the universe is presented as just illogical. So if that's not what it means, what's the alternative? Well, the source proposes this definition. Israel means someone who has overcome an adversary, a false god, maybe an agent of Satan, but he does it through the power of the true God. See the difference? The victory isn't over God, it's a victory enabled by God. And when you put them side by side like this, the shift in perspective is just night and day. The common interpretation suggests a victory of human strength against God, but the interpretation from our source shows a victory achieved by divine power, where a broken man has to rely on God to beat a spiritual enemy. It's a complete flip of where the power is coming from. Now, the linguistic reason for this argument comes from the original Hebrew. The word used for God in the passage is Elohim, and that word is a bit ambiguous. A lot of the time it does mean the one true God, but it can also refer to angels, other spiritual authorities, or even false gods. So as the source argues, context is absolutely everything here. And this really is the question the source poses to back up its point. And it's a good one. Just think about it for a second. This is a man who was so scared of his brother Esau that he was literally shaking in his boots. Does it make any sense that this same guy could then turn around and physically overpower the Almighty Creator? The source suggests the answer is a clear and simple no. So this is a fascinating reinterpretation of an ancient story. But why does it matter to us today? Let's take a look at how this journey from Jacob to Israel is presented as a kind of universal spiritual path. Our source connects this new understanding of Israel directly to Jesus, saying he is the ultimate fulfillment of that name. And why is that? Because Jesus didn't fight with God. His entire purpose was a spiritual battle to defeat the adversary, the prince of this world, Satan. He is the perfect picture of someone who wins not by his own strength, but through divine power. So this story becomes a kind of roadmap for our own transformation. The path from that striving, scheming Jacob inside all of us to the divinely empowered Israel involves these key steps. First, you got to recognize your own limits. Then, you admit that all your self-effort isn't going to get you there. And finally, you rely completely on God's grace. In a Christian worldview, this all happens when you receive the Spirit of Christ, which, the source says, leads to true, lasting rest. And all of this leads to one of the most famous invitations ever spoken from Jesus himself. It's a call to every single person living that exhausting Jacob life, weary from all the striving, burdened by your own efforts. It's an invitation to come and finally find rest. It's the ultimate promise of peace that can only come when we stop struggling on our own. So, at the end of the day, this deep dive into one of history's most famous stories leaves us with a really powerful question for our own lives. In your struggles, in your day-to-day, are you operating like Jacob, relying on your own strength, your own cleverness? Or have you found the path to becoming Israel, finding victory not through fighting harder, but through surrender?